Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. This is Cannoning Remastered Episode 2, and today we're just going to be answering the simple question, what do we do if the wall's watered? So you will recall in the first episode that I discussed that TNT will not destroy blocks in water, so we use that in our cannon, but also people can use that feature in their bases. See, we get absolutely no damage on this wall here. So how do we actually destroy this wall? And how are we going to implement that in our cannon? To demonstrate the next part of this video, I'm going to be returning back to the little water test rig that I used in the first video. So when I light a piece of TNT in this water, as you recall, it will not explode. Again, that's just visual. However, if we place a block and then we light some TNT on top of that block, the TNT now has a dry path to the blocks underneath, and it's now able to destroy those blocks underneath. So on our wall over here, how are we going to create a dry part in that wall in order to destroy it? All right, so now we know what we need to do with the TNT. We need to make sure that it is in a dry spot and connected to the blocks that we want to be destroyed. So what we can do is use sand. Now, sand has a unique property that it is a gravity affected block. You can see there when it is unsupported, it will fall down, but it will turn into a solid block when it reaches the bottom again. So you can see it turns from a solid block to an entity back down to a solid block. And why that's so important is we can shoot entities with our TNT cannons, but we can't shoot solid blocks. So for example here, if I light this TNT, that sand is now unsupported. It falls into the TNT, turns back into a solid block, and now we can destroy the blocks that are connected to that water. So now we know what we need to do with a cannon in order to reliably destroy walls like that. The issue is now implementing it. So we need a system to reliably convert sand from a solid block to an entity and back to a solid block. We also want it to be redstone compatible so that we do not need to hand place sand in our barrel like so, and it will always consistently go off at exactly when we want it to go off. And so therefore, the next component that we're going to be introducing in our little redstone segment of the tutorial series is a piston. Now, this is a normal piston, not a sticky piston. I will discuss sticky pistons in a later episode when we need them, but for now, a normal piston will be sufficient. So the advantage of a normal piston is that we can use redstone to activate it, and it will physically push a block, which in sand's case will convert it to an entity, which we can then shoot at the wall. Now, when you do use this setup here, a stack of sand and then a piston, and then like your barrel here, you need to keep in mind that A, the piston takes one redstone tick to extend, like that, and B, the sand will take one redstone tick to convert from a solid block to an entity. So now we know the mechanics that we want to use. We know how we want to set it up in our cannon to make sure it works. All we need to do now is time it. So we need to start by doing a little bit of maths. So when we press our button here, we say these dispensers activate at 0 redstone ticks. Now, that's the booster, that's not the power. What we're actually shooting the projectile at the wall with is our power. So we want our power. We want to be basically measuring off our power in order to time this piston correctly. So in this case here, we go 0 redstone ticks, 4 redstone ticks. So these dispensers will activate on 4 redstone ticks. Now the TNT obviously doesn't explode instantly. So what we're going to do is add 40 redstone ticks to take into account the fusing of the TNT. And that is going to leave us with a grand total of 44 redstone ticks. And what that means is it's going to take 44 redstone ticks from pressing our button to our power exploding. And now we have a basis to time that piston on. All right, so with 44 redstone ticks being our goal, what we're going to start by doing is accounting for any ticks that are used up by other bits of circuitry. What I mean by that is over on this little test setup here, I demonstrated that the piston extending takes 1 redstone tick and the sand falling takes another redstone tick. So we've already accounted for 2 redstone ticks in this setup here. So instead of powering this on 44 redstone ticks, we want to be powering it on 42 redstone ticks. So now we know the precise timing that we want this piston to push at. We need 42 redstone ticks. In this case here, what we're going to use is 10 4-tick repeaters. I think that's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10. And then we're going to use one additional 2-tick repeater to make a grand total of 42 redstone ticks. So we got our 10 4-tick repeaters and our one 2-tick repeater. And now hopefully, when I fire this cannon, you should see our sand gets shot at the wall. Like that. Now you can see our sand is correctly timed. We are shooting our sand at the wall. However, we do not have a hole in the wall yet. The reason for that is when we shoot our sand out, it's still an entity. So it's going to take a bit of time for the sand to fall down on top of the TNT. Now the TNT is going off very, very early. So what is happening at the wall here is while the sand is still falling, the TNT explodes. So the easiest way that we can rectify that is by adding a bit more time to our TNT. In this case here, we're going to use that mechanic of the redstone powering the blocks adjacent to it to install another repeater here. Worst case scenario, you can put a line of redstone around the back here to power it alternatively. However, for this cannon, this will be correct. So to make this easier on myself, I'm just going to set that to 4 redstone ticks. So we've just doubled the amount of delay going to that set of pistons, and we're going to fire the cannon again. And now you can see we have a hole in our wall. So this episode turned out to be a little bit quicker than I was expecting. However, a bite-sized episode is still nice for me because it means a little bit less for me to edit. So hopefully you enjoyed, hopefully you learned something new, and I will see you all later.